Americans are asking, why do they hate us? They hate what they see right here in this chamber, a democratically elected government. Their leaders are self-appointed. They hate our freedoms, our freedom of religion, our freedom of speech, our freedom to vote and assemble and disagree with each other.
Everybody right to go? Thanks very much for joining us for the daily update and some very significant announcements about new measures, new rules for both metropolitan Melbourne and regional Victoria. First things first, there are now, in cumulative terms, 11,557 coronavirus cases in Victoria. That's 671 more than we reported yesterday. 73 of those are in connection with known and contained outbreaks or complex cases. 598 of those are under investigation by our public health team. I'm very sad to have to report that the total death toll now as a result of this global pandemic has risen to 123. That is 7 more fatalities since our last update. That is 3 women in their 70s, 2 women in their 80s, 1 man in his 90s, and 1 woman in her 90s. Of those 7 cases, 6 of those have a connection to aged care. If there's any further information that we can provide, then of course we will do that. Can I send my best wishes and condolences to each of those families? This will be a terribly difficult time for them, and our thoughts and prayers are with you during this very, very difficult time. We have 6,322 active cases. 385 Victorians are in hospital. 38 of those are receiving intensive care. In terms of health workers, there are some 649 active cases. Active cases with a connection to aged care, 1,053. And the metro regional split, again noting that there is some work still being done to reconcile these numbers. There'll be some further investigative work, but in broad terms, 5,829 in restricted areas, so Melbourne and Mitchell, and 328 cases in regional Victoria. Just before I go, tests I should also, we don't have an exact number today, there's still a bit of work being done around processing those tests, but we've done at least 1,651,953, that is around 18,000 more than our last update. Just before I go into making announcements in relation to new restrictions, both for Melbourne and for regional Victoria, I want to highlight one number in terms of daily numbers that is in many respects the most important number. As of today, and this number will only grow because, as I've just reported to you, there are 598 cases that are being investigated by our public health team. But as of today, from detective work that's been undertaken in recent days, we have 760 mystery cases. They are active cases where we cannot trace back the source of that person's infection, either who they got it from or where or how. Those mysteries, that community transmission, is in many respects our biggest challenge and the reason why we need to move to a different set of rules. If you've got that many cases, and they're not just in metropolitan Melbourne, they are in fact in regional Victoria as well. If you've got that many cases of community transmission, then you must assume that you have even more. And on that basis, you can no longer be confident that you've got a precise understanding of how much virus is there. Therefore, you've got to err on the side of caution and go further and go harder. Can I just, by way of introduction to these new rules as well, just make a point? The current strategy has avoided our hospital system being completely overwhelmed. The current rules have avoided thousands and thousands of cases each day and then thousands of people in hospital and many more tragedies than we have seen. But it is not working fast enough. And there are a number of different reasons for that. But after a lot of hard work, a lot of detailed analysis, our public health experts, as well as them speaking with their federal counterparts, and I'm sure some interstate colleagues as well, they provided advice to me that simply says if we were to pursue this strategy with a view to driving down numbers to a very low level, a containable level where we could reopen, it would likely be the end of the year before we were able to reopen. That's a 6-month strategy that is simply not going to work. Therefore, we have to do more, and we have to do more right now. So, following that detailed advice, I've made a number of decisions and I want to run through those for you. First of all, from 6 p.m. tonight, I am declaring a state of disaster across Victoria. This will be in addition to the state of emergency that has operated throughout. This means that police and others have additional powers. We can suspend various acts of the Parliament. We can make sure that we get the job done, and there's no question about the enforceability and the way in which new rules will operate. Beyond that, I have a new series of Stage 4 restrictions to announce, and I'll do Metro Melbourne first, and then I'll go to the impacts for regional Victoria. So that state of disaster is from 6 p.m. tonight. Beyond that, the stay-at-home restrictions for Metro Melbourne will be enhanced. There will be additional limits to the 4 reasons to leave home. You will no longer be able to leave home or go any further away from your home than a 5-kilometre radius. You will not be able to be at any point more than 5 kilometres away from your home for the purposes of shopping for what you need. Only one person will be able to go shopping once per day, and they will need to secure the goods and services that are what you need within a 5-kilometre radius. In terms of exercise, recreational activity is now no longer allowed. You will be allowed to have 1 hour of exercise no further than 5 kilometres from your home. That means it's fresh air, it's a jog, it's a walk, it's in your local neighbourhood, it is staying close to home or in your home, and there will no longer be able to be any groups bigger than 2, regardless of whether they are from your family or someone else. Now, there will be common sense exemptions for children who are being cared for and can't be left at home, things of that nature. But ultimately, when it comes to shopping, one person goes out once a day and stays close to home within 5 k's. When it comes to exercise, it's no longer 3 sets of tennis or a game of golf or any of that. It is staying close to home and only once per day and only one person. That is really very, very important as well. The whole issue of 1 hour really puts beyond doubt some of those recreational activities anyway, because you simply wouldn't be able to conduct some of those things in an hour. Ultimately, all of these changes are about limiting movement. All of these changes are about limiting the number of people that we come in contact with. Daily exercise is just that. It's an opportunity to get some exercise. It is not an opportunity to live our lives as if this pandemic was not real and was not here and was not literally the biggest challenge we've perhaps ever faced. Just to go back to the beginning before I go on to regional Victoria as well, I just want to be clear. These changes are about making sure that we limit movement, that we have less people moving around. Today is about a series of changes that relate to how we live our lives. Tomorrow I'll make further announcements about how we work. They are 2 separate issues. There's a power of work being done around changes to some employment, places of work, I should say. There will be significant changes to a number of workplaces in terms of how much they're doing. Some will close. All of that is for tomorrow. I'll come back to that before I finish, just to provide some reassurance about things that will, under any scenario, remain open. The third area of change for metropolitan Melbourne is that under those state of disaster provisions from 8 p.m. tonight, a curfew will be implemented. So there will be a curfew across metropolitan Melbourne from 8 p.m. this evening, and it will run from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. each and every day. And the only reason to be out of your home between the hours of 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. is to get care, to give care, or to go to and from work or be at work. We can no longer have people visiting others. We can no longer have people simply out and about for no good reason whatsoever. It is not an easy decision to make, but it is the decision that is necessary, and that is why I have made it. And that's why police will be out in force, and you will be stopped, and you will be asked, and you will need to demonstrate that you are lawfully out and that you are not breaching that curfew. Going to a mate's place, going and visiting friends, being out and about for no good reason, all that will do is spread this virus, and therefore that curfew will apply from 8 p.m. tonight.